Yep. Welcome. This is my friend Toby. Toby, tell people about yourself.
I work in the fitness industry. I spent a long time as a first responder and got into the fitness industry let me back up a couple. I was a really small guy. I wanted to put on some quality weight. A friend of mine who's a competitive bodybuilder, shout out to my buddy Joe, brought me into the gym and showed me a pretty hardcore, sort of a hardcore gym. It's a little intimidating. I go in there, I think the first day, and somebody had like 5-6 plates loaded up on squats and was ripping it out. So it's a bit of I'm going there, I'm like 140, 145 pounds, a skinny guy,
Uh-huh.
And but he brought me in there, showed me how to train, introduced me to it, and then after a while, once you start doing something for a while, people start asking you, they take note, hey, and they start asking you for advice, and I noticed that when I would give advice, and people would go, hey, thanks, and they're accomplishing goals and stuff. I got out of that what I had been searching for as far as job satisfaction. I'd been searching for out of my career. Mm-hmm. And so when I married my wife's in the military. We got married, and of course, can't stay in one place too long. So we moved, and I took that opportunity to transition into the fitness space. And so I have been, since then, I have been training, coaching people from all walks of life, a lot of military first responders and their immediate families. And yeah, I've been doing that ever since. And I do some volunteer work. I do some charity work for some military centered organizations for wellness and health like that. I volunteer for a wonderful organization called Independent. And it's all about wellness for the military spouses and their family, and the military and the service members, mental health, financial health, nutrition, physical health, all the different aspects to try to keep you on the road to success, so to speak. So, yeah, I guess that's it in a nutshell.
Excuse me. Tell me about the experience of being, number one, a military spouse. And number two, being the male half of a military couple when you're the spouse and you're not actually in the military yourself. What's that experience been like for you? Because my understanding is that it can be challenging if you're stationed someplace that doesn't have a great infrastructure for supporting military spouses. And just can be just the opposite in places that do.
So, first, let me say, spending many years as a first responder, there's a lot of carryover and understanding stressors, things that you deal with. There's some carryover there.
Yeah.
And I also want to say that when I becoming a military spouse, I was already closing in on 30. I was almost 30. I think it was like 29 and a half. So I was not that far away. So I had a lot of experience. I had, had property, bought vehicles, paid taxes, do all these other things that a lot of people that go from 18 years old directly in the military, they haven't, they go from one to the other. There wasn't a gap. So it is a different experience for me. So I'm not putting down and saying any experience is more important than the other, but I had some advantages of kind of living out there in what they will say like the air quotes real world or whatever. Mm-hmm. There are some things that I experienced prior to this that sort of helped me set up. And it's no secret that the older you get, the more experience you get. You sort of not necessarily well prepared to handle the situation, but you're prepared to handle things that you don't know about better. And so coming into it, I think it's a little bit different for me. So I just want to get that out of the way. So I don't want to. Everybody's experience varies, but as the male, excuse me, there's unique challenges that you face that a lot of the women, they don't face, or they may face the situations, but for a different reason. My best example would be when we moved to where we lived before. We lived in Tampa. When we moved there, my son, he was still quite young. He was just like 3-4 months old, right? So for a while, it's just he's doing his thing, being a baby. once he got to the point where he wanted to start playing with other children, and we really needed to socialize him with other children and have him playing around other children, it became quite difficult because me, as working for myself, I did a lot of staying at home. So I was the primary caregiver for him at the time. And so staying at home, I'm doing a lot of my stuff virtually. I'm dealing with clients, and then I also would have some contracts with gyms, and I would go teach classes or train people one-on-one there. I was with him a lot, so a lot of it, that responsibility fell on me to try to find him playmates and playdates and stuff like that. Well, you can imagine I'm trying to think of how I can put this. I don't want to offend anyone, but it's just the truth. You can imagine how much insecurity may be involved in a situation where the male parent is trying to sort of befriend the female parent of the other child to set up play dates, and there's some weirdness that can happen. And so, a lot of the times I'd say, hey, our kids are getting along great. It'd be at the playground. You want to exchange information? A lot of times I would just say, hey, Facebook, it's kind of a safe bet. If somebody feels weird, they can block you or whatever. They're not giving you your number. So I always try to approach it in that manner. Hey, that way we can set up a play date. And I was very careful, trying to set that up. And a lot of the times, that's fine. Then, of course, you never hear from anybody. And so it turned into my son having such a hard time. And I'm not saying that a lot of the ladies don't deal with that, but it's obviously for a different reason that they would be dealing with that. So it's a unique sort of situation. Some of those situations are unique. And I think the biggest thing understanding as well is that in a situation like this that we have, traditional gender roles don't work. Yeah. I mean, to a degree, right? Like, I'm still the one that kills the big scary spider. You know what I mean? That's crawling around the house. I'm still doing, the heavier lifting just because I'm, physically stronger. So there are some of those things that, I end up doing just because of ability, not gender. But as a man, regardless of how you feel, how much you think it won't affect you, it does. I went from making more as far as salary goes and everything than my wife to making less. So I've always, in every relationship I've ever been in, I've always been the one that made more money. So as much as people would try to act like it doesn't bother them,
it does.
It probably will. Yeah. At first, at least. And it did. So now you have all these feelings of, I'm not productive enough. I'm not successful enough. I'm wasting, I'm wasting away. I'm not doing this and that, and my professional development and all these different things. And there are some challenges there. Now, luckily for me, I've able to move beyond those, and we have a wonderful system. And, I've been able to struggle with those, but it is a struggle. And I can only imagine how much of a struggle it would be for someone who is quite a bit younger, who hasn't had the time to maybe outgrow some of the ego that we have in our early 20s, late teens. So I can only imagine what it would be like for a younger guy wrestling with that, feeling equal in a society where you're supposed to, we still very much, you're supposed to be the one that makes the most money. You're supposed to be doing this and you're supposed to be doing that. There's still very much that pressure. So I can only imagine that. So that's why I do like male military spouse advocacy. And I speak about men's mental health and stuff like that in this realm. So yeah, there are some unique challenges. However, it's challenging for everyone. So
yeah, I'm sure. Well, I mean, speaking from personal experience, and you and I have talked about this before. Toby and I have known each other for a while. We have never actually met in person, but we talk frequently. And as I remember, you and your dad were fans of the old podcast, the original one.
So this is a cool story, ladies and gents. When I first got into lifting and I would work night shift, I wanted to learn more about lifting, and I didn't know. I know you move the bar from point A to point B. I honestly didn't know much. I wrestled, I did some judo, strength and conditioning type stuff, but it was mostly calisthenics, body weight exercises and stuff like that when I was younger. So I was never not in shape, but I didn't know anything about lifting. I didn't know about programming. I just thought you went in there and lifted as much as you can for as much as you can, and then you got out. And I didn't understand anything like that. So at night shift, I ended up trying to find, on YouTube, as one does at 2 or 3 in the morning, especially on my off days because I would keep the same schedule. And so everybody's asleep, so I had to find something to do. So I ran across this podcast. We don't have to spend too much time on that. But I noticed as I'm watching Jim, full offense or whatever, as I'm watching Jim, he seems to be the one answering, like asking the questions to the guests that would come up in my mind. You know, sometimes you watch an interview and you're like, man, I wish they would press this, or I wish they would chase this down a little bit more, or ask this question. Jim was always the person that asked those questions. So while everybody else is asking, some of these questions were pretty outlandish, but Jim would always be like, oh, wait a minute, hold on. Can you clarify this? And I'm like, thank you, because that's what I wanted. So that's exactly what it was. That's how I got into watching that old podcast.
Well, cool. Thank you. As I was saying, though, you and I have talked before about the fact that, somewhere along the line, like I had a corporate job, and then kind of simultaneously, I had a kid who got sick and didn't get better for a long, long time, and the corporate job ended, and so I essentially didn't ever go back to an office anywhere. I consulted, and sometimes I did nothing but be at home. And yeah, that's just a giant bump to the ego. And I had been the one who was making more money before, and it just happened to flip around that my wife was the one making more money and had, a pension, which is a unicorn at this point. And we went, kind of all in on that. And it still bugs me sometimes, because I am essentially like drifting into what would be retirement age, but I don't know how to stop really. So there's that. And when I look back, it's some of the accomplishments that are, maybe somewhat tarnished about like how they ended that bug me, and the things that probably should make me feel better about this, about what happened to my career, and what it actually turned out to be, are somewhat tainted. So yeah, I mean, I get it. I totally, that's really sort of the root of my question about the male military spouse is yeah, I mean, obviously you're making a contribution, but if there are kids involved, and with the prospect of having to move every few years or whatever, the chances that you actually work outside the home are relatively small. It's the same with women, except that there's an old gender role thing, and it's difficult to know like how to overcome that in your head.
A lot of what I'm describing, the same experiences are experiences that you've dealt with, right?
Yeah.
So it's not unique, and that's why I try to tell people it's not necessarily unique to a military family, but it hits a bit harder in some cases in that you move to a new place. I don't have anyone here. At least if you're in your hometown or wherever your family is, you do have some sort of a support system. But again, every military spouse deals with this, not just the men. I think where it compounds is there's the overlap that makes it just that much a little bit worse. For the guys is that struggling with the gender roles without also having the support system. So it's not putting down the ladies and saying that their experience are any less valid or they're any less difficult. It's just, the experiences that we have in some of those overlaps are unique.
Right.
So I think it like in a vacuum, all of these things exist by themselves, right? And they're all challenges that we all face, but where there's a little bit of overlap.
Yeah, and you're also doing it within, what can be a fairly rigid structure. I mean, the military is involved in so many aspects of a military family's life.
Yeah, I mean, we're not taking a vacation unless somebody says it's okay.
Right.
And then even then, last minute, depending upon what happens, a mission first thing,
Right.
If they can say, well, actually, this came up, so we're going to have to do this and that and the other, So Yeah, there are some of those things that we put up with, but my wife and I discussed it, and I said my sort of condition. I don't want to say it was like a condition, like I gave her an ultimatum, but sort of one of my conditions was I said, hey, if I'm going to give up this career, then I want you to take yours as far as it can go. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna. I don't hold anything. I'm not. I don't hold any grudges. There's nothing like that. It's not like I'm like, oh, my career's gone because I married it. There's none of that. No. I'm very, very happy. I am much happier doing what I do now than what I did. And so there's nothing like that. I'm not trying to say that, she should feel guilty or anything. It's quite the opposite. My thing was just keep it in mind. Make the best of that situation. You know what I mean? If somebody's got to give something up, take that energy, that whatever there, and just run with that. Try to, you know what I mean? Lean into it. Go as far as you can. Take it as far as you can. And my view in her career is anytime there's a question about, do you think I should do this? Do I blah, blah, blah? My first question is, do you want to? Is it something that's going to be beneficial? Well, yeah, but okay, then do it.
Yeah.
I'm grown. We'll figure it out. You know what I mean? It'll be all right. I'll take care of it. So you do whatever it is you need to do. And I've always had that. That viewpoint, that stance. I mean, there are some things that I would prefer over others, but at the end of the day, if we're going to make the most of it, then sacrifice comes from all ends. So, and that's something that I am perfectly okay with. No issues.
Yeah, even down to like where you live, what part of the country or what part of the world you live in. Not really having the best control over that all the time. I think sometimes you can talk about places you want to go and places you're interested in, and sometimes those things can be accommodated. But
sometimes,
but not. It's not anything you can count on. But it's also a little bit like. It's a little bit like return to office has been the last year or so post COVID, because a lot of people were working remotely and living wherever they wanted to, and suddenly now they are losing that control and of where they live, and that's a whole thing. Which I mean, from that perspective, a lot of people move to lower cost of living areas. I mean, that's true, and then having to go back to a high cost of living area, that's a real challenge, especially without any change in your compensation structure. It's like, oh.
So I personally know someone. I'm going to use a name or the company they work for, but it's a pretty big company. But what they've done is they've said, okay, you can still work remotely, but here's what's going to happen. If you decide you want to move away to a lower cost area, we're going to pay you what we pay employees in that area. So let's say you want to take your $150,000 a year and move to an area where the average household income is $80,000 a year or whatever. That's fine. You're going to take a pay cut, and that's what we're doing. And so a lot of places are doing that. And I'm not going to say whether it's right or wrong. I'm not saying that at all. If you're going to allow somebody to be remote, let them be remote, whatever. But I mean, like you say, it's either hey, you need to move back here. I know another person decided to move to Orlando, the Orlando area, excuse me, just east of Orlando, and 6 hours away from where the home office is. And they said, okay, by the way, in 3 months you have to be back here, and because now you have to be in the office twice a week.
Yeah,
and so it was one of those things. It was like, so immediately they started weighing out like. Is it cheaper for me to travel, or no? I don't want to deal with that headache. That's too much. I mean, even you're talking about a 6-7 hour drive one way. So, so they just decided, okay, we got to move back and everything like that. And it was, kind of not cool, right? It's kind of not cool. You say you can live wherever, and then later on you're like, actually,
I kind of can't.
You need to come back here.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Hope you liked it. Bye.
Yeah. No, I have a neighbor who is struggling with that right now. Like, moved during the pandemic to a lower cost. Not that we live in a low cost of living area, but a lower cost of living area than, say, the Bay Area. And now is supposed to be returning to office, but like, can't sell the house because they bought it at, kind of the height of the COVID craziness. And,
Yeah.
have to keep getting kind of extensions about what to do. Really just probably looking for more of a local job because they don't really want to move again, which I get. But anyway, with the military, you don't really get that much latitude. No.
I mean, so from my understanding, I don't get too much involved in it because it's I'm doing what I do sort of out of necessity, and I get involved in the volunteering and stuff like that because I see a need for it, and so I'm here for the younger versions of me who I feel like deserve to have that sort of advocacy. Excuse me. But from my understanding is you can kind of place things in order of what you want. For, like what's available. That's okay. This is available, and you put things in order of like what you want. One being, most desired. 2, 3, 4, 5, blah, 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 blah. And what they try to do is they try to accommodate you as long as it makes sense for the military. Putting you here makes sense because you do this, and this is what we need, and that makes sense, and we need more people there. Putting you here doesn't because nobody needs you there. So it's not, you know what I mean? Yeah. So the picking and choosing stuff like that. So yeah, there's absolutely that element of it, and oftentimes you don't know where you're going until sort of. There's a special thing about moving where you want to move because you've made plans, and somebody going, "This is where you're going. Make the best of it." Good luck. Yeah. Good luck. So there's definitely that's the added challenge. So it's like, okay, now we got to find the best of this place because some places suck, man. I'm just gonna be honest with you.
I'm sure
it's like that. It's like that Tom Segura joke or whoever it was, where he was like, "Is everywhere the same?" No, some places suck. Some places are cool. Like whoever it was, and that's just the way it is. So, and a lot of times you don't know until you get there. You can try to ask around, but you get there and you're like, "All right, gotta make the best of it."
Yeah, I totally understand that. So you were talking about volunteer work with folks. What specifically is that? Like what kinds of things are you doing there?
So a lot of it's just going to be like different content. One of the things that I do for them for independent, and I've done for other organizations as well, is donate time and knowledge, basically, right? So I'll write articles for them. Contribute to just sort of my professional opinion on certain topics that they want to cover, relevance. And then for me, of course, being in the fitness realm, I have the benefit of understanding that the physical and of course the mental and the nutritional health aspect of overall wellness. I feel like wellness has like lost its meaning now because everything's wellness this and wellness that. But anyway,
it got so commercialized. Who knows what it's about anymore?
I've talked to the team about it too, and I'm like, guys, we're talking about wellness, but it's like you might as well be saying sidewalk at this point because it's just so overused, But anyway, so contribute to stuff like that, and I have the benefit of working in the fitness realm. So people come to me, hey, what about what can we do? How can we suggest for people to do more resistance training without, what can we do to substitute barbells and dumbbells and cables and stuff like that? Okay, well, we can do this. So we get into that, but then I also have the unique position of being a military spouse and a male military spouse. So they like to pull my opinion for multiple reasons. And yeah, it's just trying to help people to sort of tackle that as we discuss. So much of your life is outside of your control, which I mean, for most people, most of your life is outside of your control. Newsflash, buddy. But at least you can kind of choose where you want to live. You sort of have a say so in some of those things. Yeah. So one of the things that we like to approach is that you may not be able to choose where you live. You can't choose your job market. You can't choose a lot of things, but you can choose what you do with your body, and you can choose what you put in your mouth. You can choose, to dedicate time to, having, positive thoughts, meditation, and all these different things. So we try to focus on that, and through people utilizing these various outlets and also the information we have, feel like they have some sort of a control, right? At least I have control of my health, as much as you can.
Makes sense.
And so that's just the physical aspect. And obviously we also have people that work on, we have some wonderful registered dietitians on the team. We have people that work from all different walks, people that work in politics. We have people that work in clinical applications for various other health and wellness related things. And it's just trying to get sort of the end goal, I guess, would be, in a nutshell, is trying to get as many resources under one roof as we can so that we can get as many of those resources out to people in the easiest way.
Yeah. And I know you work with clients as well. Can you just tell me like what kinds of clients you currently work with? And I know you're doing some in-person training.
Yeah, so I do some in-person stuff as well. And I would mention where that is, but policy dictates that I'm not supposed to. But anyway, there's a gym, and at this gym,
sorry about that.
I train people in person. Bless you, by the way. And so I train people in person. I also do stuff virtually. I've trained people as young as, somewhere around 4 years old, children. And obviously for children, you're focused more on the movement, general movement, nothing really sport. You don't get too sport specific and stuff like that. And then all the way up to people who have wanted to sort of dabble in bodybuilding, people who want to sort of get into powerlifting, just strength sports in general. And then even just your average person, hey, my A1C is 5.9, and I would love for my blood work next year to reflect at least in the normal range, 5.6, 5.5, whatever. And so these different sort of life goals. And then even I have some people who are, in their 70s. As a matter of fact, I had one client today, standing unsupported close grip cable rows. She did like 100 pounds for like a set of 12.
Wow.
And she's like in her mid 70s, right? And of course she's doing it and she's like, yeah, like that's great, right? And everybody else in the gym's going, they're watching this whole stack move on the cable machine, and they're like, so I've worked with people from all over. My approach, I guess to delve into it a little bit further, my approach is always to figure out how to weave a good fitness routine into your existing lifestyle instead of completely moving everything around. I just feel like that's where people sort of go wrong. They try to change everything all at once, and that's why it doesn't work. So I always ask my clients, some of the three biggest questions is, what would you say your average stress level is on a scale from 1 to 10? 1 being completely at peace, 10 being an active gunfight. And most people are between a 5 and 7. Most people are between a 5 and 7 that you ask. My next question is, what are your goals? What is your overall goal? Okay, this is what I want to do. I want to pick up some muscle. I want to basically body recomposition is usually the biggest. I want to lose fat and build muscle. That's kind of the basic, the basic thing. So whatever the goal is, and then I'll ask you, how much time can you give me per week? And so they're like, well, you tell me. Nope. You tell me what kind of time you have, and then I'll let you know how fast we can get this done. So, and then, do you have 3 30-minute sessions? Do you have 3 1-hour sessions? How much time do you have? How much do you want to dedicate to it? And so that's sort of my approach to it, is trying to figure out how to weave that in, because we're not professional athletes. We don't go to the gym, work out hard, go home, eat, and play video games all day. We're not getting paid to do that. We have stress, we have kids, we have appointments, we have vacations, we have barbecues, we have all these things and these obligations, these other stressors that we have, because that same bundle of nerves that's responsible for lifting the heavy circles is the same bundle of nerves that's responsible for you keeping your cool in traffic. Yeah. So burning the candle at both ends, people don't realize that. I'm stressed out. I'm going to go kill myself in the gym. Yeah, stress yourself out more, man. Go do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so anyway, that's my approach is generally, and those are the types of people. So the answer is all walks of life: military, law enforcement, regular people.
Do you have a favorite type of client?
The one that listens. I mean,
yeah.
The one that listens. We had this conversation. I had this conversation the other day with a couple of my colleagues, and somebody mentioned, somebody just mentioned, and they said something about training. What's the difference between training a man and a woman? And I said, how much easier it is? And they were like, is it easier training a man? And I went, no.
No, it's easier to train.
No, it's easier to train a woman. And if you ask everybody I've asked, I know people who are all walks of life and professionals, far more information gained, known. I mean, some of these people have forgotten more things than I'll probably ever learn about some of the aspects of the industry. And I've asked people who coach IFBB pros, people who coach powerlifters, strongman athletes, just regular people. And every time I'm going to say, who is your easiest clients, men or women? Without missing a beat, every single one of them, it's going to be women, generally speaking. So not to say that that's my favorite type of client, but it's just they generally listen better than sort of, especially the guys with the ego involved and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, do you think it's just a listening? It's an attention to detail? Is it a desire to improve, or is it a desire to conform to expectations?
I think that I've teaching children and adults. Children are obviously a little bit easier because they're taught to be ready to accept the information from the adult that's teaching them. Right, they're already primed for that. When you teach an adult, if I'm going to train you, whether it's I'm going to teach you how to shoot a gun, I'm going to teach you how to do this, I'm going to teach you how to lift weights. Oftentimes, as an adult, you sort of have to prove to that adult that they should listen to you, right? Like there's sort of an element of like, I need to show you that I know what I'm talking about so that you'll be ready to listen. And it's not all people, but I think sometimes, especially when you're dealing with in the gym, you're going to deal with a lot of ego. You just are. Mm. And I think sometimes people want you to see how much they know. When you think about it, it's kind of silly. It's like you're paying me to help you achieve your goal. If you knew what you were doing, you wouldn't be paying me, right? That's sort of the logical approach. I think it has more to do with there's a lot less ego involved, and I think that they're interested in getting to their goal. The goal is the view. How do I get there? And it's a very logical approach. And whatever the system is, like a lot of my female clients, I don't really have to worry. The jokes on the internet, you see them all the time. Like when you're 80%, triples start feeling like it's a 1 rep max day. You know what I mean? I don't really deal with a lot of people going off script like that. As far as the ladies are concerned, I don't have a lot of them that'll do that. Every now and then, I've got one in particular. And I'm sure she's going to end up watching this. Every now and then I'll be like, yeah, okay, so how did the session go or whatever? Because, I coach her virtually, and she'll be like, well, I did this, but I was feeling really good, so I decided I was going to try this, and then I failed, and I'm like, damn it. So she goes off script a little bit, but a lot of the guys, they don't, the ladies don't lie to me as much as the guys do. So a lot of the times for the ladies, if they mess up or something, hey, I ate about 1,000 extra I got consumed about 1,000 extra calories because, somebody wanted to drink and I ended up drinking too much, blah, 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 blah. Well, of course, now I know, right? I understand what's going on. Now we can see and we can make a course correction. A lot of the guys are like, oh, yeah, all I had was chicken, rice, and broccoli today.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that someone far smarter than me, a psychologist, could probably explain what's going on there. But it's just...
Well, that's the ego protection.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, a big part of it.
I'm an ego lifter. I do it all the time. I'm like, I'm only supposed to do 10 reps, but it's feeling good. So I'm like, I do 13, or whatever.
I think that, and I had really not spent that much time thinking about this until recently, but some people just don't want to make the decisions themselves, even if they know. And this is why a lot of coaches have coaches, because they don't want to have to make decisions about their own training because they try to outsmart themselves. They get froggy and push their program past where it's supposed to go, and
you're going to look the worst. You're going to look the worst to yourself.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I think it's just a motivation for making some changes around here is that people come in and like, yeah, I work down the street and I would really like to go to a gym that I'm comfortable with. I don't want to decide what I'm doing. I just want to walk in and have somebody tell me what to do. And it's like, yeah, well, that is a type of fitness dedication. It's not I'll do anything, I will research anything, I'll try anything, in the realm to meet my goals. It's no, I know I need to, but I don't want to pursue that information. I got too many other things going on. It's like the people who have a wardrobe that just kind of looks the same every day because they don't want to decide what to put on. They just don't have the bandwidth for it.
But those people understand. They understand their limitations, and they understand what they're willing to do and what they're not willing to do. And once again,
it's not a judgment on my part saying that. It's just a reality.
No, of course not. Yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's so much better for them to be interested in their fitness than where their programming comes from.
How about I want you to do what you're willing to do, and I think a lot of people that get into this industry, and I probably to some degree years ago thought that it was going to be something similar, but you almost start projecting, right? Like you think people are going to take it as serious as you do. And here's the thing: the people you're going to make the most money on, like your collectively your clients, are going to be the types of people that you're describing. Like, hey, I know I need to be in shape. I know I need to be healthier. I don't really care. Just tell me what to do. And that's a lot of them. A lot of people are like that because, again, to my philosophy, like I said, that's kind of the people I produce. Now, I try to educate my clients because the goal of any trainer, coach, whatever, the goal of at least any trainer at the Gen Pop level should be to get your client to where they don't need you. Now, it sounds sort of counterproductive, right? Because you're like, this is how I make my living, but I also need you not to need me. But that's sort of the truth. People should gain an understanding. So for me, my thing that I always do is I explain to my clients, okay, hey, you see, I'll have them do something. And I'll say, hey, by the way, we did this because X, Y, Z. And they go, it's easier to do something for a multitude of reasons when you understand why you're doing it. Yeah. So if I explain to you why you're doing it, and I'm not sitting there with like a chalkboard and a pointer and okay, and see over here that Brian Regan joke, the flactoids and the this and that. Nobody cares, but I'll just say, hey, the reason we're doing cable presses today instead of dumbbell presses is because you're really tucking in your elbows trying to use your triceps. These force you to pull in a little bit more to use your pecs more. And of course they feel it. They're like, yeah, Rob, I'm really feeling it. Yeah. So I'm kind of doing that to train you to feel that muscle a little bit better to kind of adjust. And so you explain that, form takes off, everything takes off. But yeah, I think that's the average person like you're talking about. I think that's where they come from. So to appeal to the elite lifters, you're missing out on most of the market share. I would say you're the gym owner, but
no, I think that I think that that's probably true. I think I think this is something that's changed over the last 10 years, last 10 years is that like everybody who's kind of at an elite level has some kind of a coach, and while I get it. It seems like it happened like wildfire spreading. You know what I mean? It's like people were following they're following, a West Side Templin or a Progressive Overload or whatever, and figuring it out for themselves. And then suddenly it became just like too much or whatever. And I think that the goal you were talking about, like them not needing you, it isn't even so much not needing you. It's the understanding what you're after, what the goals are, and why doing particular things are accrue to that goal.
Well, everybody's an athlete too now, right? Like everybody's an athlete, and also everybody's a freaking coach. Like I tell people all the time, like these people are like, "I'm an athlete," and I'm like, "Okay." You're Tom that works in IT who goes to a CrossFit gym.
Yeah, what was your signing bonus like?
That's what I'm saying. People talk about me. One of the reasons why I gave up really sort of coaching bodybuilders, I've never been. I caught myself. I'm like, what the hell am I doing? I've never been on a stage. I understand the fundamentals. I understand how to build muscle. I understand I can diet you down. I can get you to do all these things. But like at the end of the day, what the hell have I ever done in that space? Yeah. Same thing with powerlifting. I did like 2 local meets before I jacked my back up. You know what I mean? Like some old retired dude, still hung over that's like, down. You know what I mean? Like, I never. So what am I doing to call myself a powerlifting coach? Like, no, dude, my back is trashed. I can't handle that stuff anymore. So I think what we have a lot of problems. One of my good buddies, Joe, we talk about it all the time. The buddy I was telling you about, he's a competitive bodybuilder. Some of these guys, it's really bad in bodybuilding. They'll do like 2 local shows or regional shows, and next thing you know, they're a bodybuilding coach. Or like the guys who will do 2, and you run across it, I'm sure, a lot more than I do. Excuse me. The guys that'll do like 2 powerlifting meets, get their names on the website, and then all of a sudden they're a powerlifting coach. And I'm seeing that, you see that more and more now with, everything being glorified, and some of these real famous bodybuilders gaining all these followers. Everybody wants to be like them and everything like that. Everybody's so desperate to be that person because they're searching for an identity or something that they forget that there's this whole middle part where you have to learn what you're doing, right? Just because you did something and it kind of worked for you a little bit, but like my brother in Christ, you took 3rd place in a regional show and you're going to coach people to the IFBB Pro stage?
Yeah.
I don't think so. And I'm not saying, here's the thing, I'm not saying that you have to do to know, because there's plenty of people out there who make amazing coaches who have not done that much in that sphere as far as an athlete because of genetics, because of whatever. So I'm not saying that. But you're 22 years old. What have you done?
In the same way that someone who actually has achieved a high level may not be able to coach at all. They might not have any of the understanding of where somebody else is and how to get them to a higher level.
Good coaching is like you're minoring in psychology.
Yeah.
So you have to understand how people work. I have people who respond well to, I hate to say shaming them, but like really kind of punking them out. Like, really, only 9 reps? Like, what the hell? What are you doing? Oh, and they get mad and they get through it. Some people respond well to that. Other people respond well to like being passive aggressive, be like, yeah, I didn't think you were going to be able to get 9. And they're like, oh, fuck you, I'm going to get it now. You have to understand how to get with people in such a way that's not offensive, that's not going to cause a negative relationship and things like that. And so a lot of people, like you said, they could be squatting 1,000 pounds raw, hung over. But if you can't translate that and how you got there to here into somebody else, it's not always a carryover.
Yeah. Well, it's in the same realm of psychology and dealing with lifters. How do you approach a situation where someone is either not actually not making progress or feeling like they're not making progress?
Well, I mean, it's obvious. Those are two different things, but they both tend to feel the same way, right? They'll have the same sort of reaction. It's like whether you think you can't or you can. The answer is yes. The same thing. Whether you think you're not making progress, whether you think it or you're actually not making progress. Both of those kind of falls within the same thing. People that think they're not making progress, I do things along the way. I don't do. A lot of gyms like to do like an evaluation every 30 days or whatever to show people progress. Mm-hmm. I write down everybody's training. I adjust things on the fly if needed. And I keep records of those things. So like, for example, when I have somebody who feels like they're not making progress and I go, oh, well, let's flip back, because I keep everything in this big folder here. I hand jam, everything's handwritten. And okay, well, this day you did however many pounds for however many reps. That was 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago or whatever. Well, now you're doing 10 more pounds for the same amount of reps. And so I try to find little ways to show them that they've been improving. Generally speaking, not always, if the programming is sound and they're not progressing, then there is something bigger at play. So maybe you have a lot of stress going on. So that's something that I'll sort of prod into, like, hey, look, I try not to get too personal with people unless they're comfortable, but I say, hey, has anything happened recently? you got anything going on? And a lot of the times, man, 8 times out of 10, 7, 8 times out of 10, they'll be like, well, yeah, man, there's this promotion coming up, so I'm trying to make sure everything's good, and I'm really hoping that I get, you know what I mean? So now our recovery's being affected. We're stressed out. I'm not sleeping as well because I'm more stressed out. And the first step would be, let's take like a deload week. So let's reduce the weight about maybe 60, 70% of what you were doing, run through, kind of feel it, take the opportunity to focus on controlling it, feeling good, practice form and the repetitions and things like that. And let's take that week where we're really not going to stress out so much. And then let's see if you rebound pretty well. Because most people, you take about a week and you chill, and then you go back at it. A lot of people find they're, okay, yeah, I'm feeling more energized. Maybe they were overdoing it or something like that. Then we lean into, of course, the stress stuff like that. If it goes beyond that, as long as the programming is sound, I have to say this because there's bad trainers and bad coaches out there, then somebody's lying. So if I tell you, okay, this is what we're going to do, I want you to do this, 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 and this, and this, okay? And you keep missing lifts, or I tell you, okay, let's bring your calories down. Let's try to keep around 2,200 calories, and let's try to keep the protein around maybe 160, 170, something like that, or whatever. And then let's move this. We start working with macros and stuff, and then you're still not making progress. Then 9 times out of 10, somebody's lying. They've eaten something they shouldn't have. They're doing more workouts. You know what I mean? And a lot of the times you will find that. But with plateauing, if they absolutely hit a plateau, if all things are accounted for and everything's where they need to be, a change in approach. Just a change in approach, whether that's, hey, have you ever heard of conjugate training?
Yeah.
Or, hey, you're training in this way. You ever done some like 3 full body workouts in a week?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So just changing up the stimulus and seeing if that makes a difference. Yeah. Yeah. I think that people, I think that, for some people it's the not seeing the numbers go up on lifts. And for other people, it's not seeing the numbers on the scale go down. And I think that sometimes that is, people not being entirely honest about what they're consuming. But some people actually get stuck, and that's one of the things that I get upset about social media a little bit. It is entirely possible for people to get stuck. I realize there's like physiology and whatever, but it is completely possible for people to just get stuck for long periods of time.
It is,
and that can be super frustrating.
Yep. And again, I think that's where the change of approach comes in. So let's figure out what we're doing, and we're going to try to change that. But I think it calls back to whatever the program is, whether it's the eating. Let's use program interchangeably for nutrition, your diet. What is going on there? And a lot of times, I'll have people that come to me and they'll say, "Yeah, I keep getting to this weight, and then I keep getting stuck at this weight." And I'll go, Well, have you ever considered that your body wants to weigh this much?
Yeah.
Or or let me look at what you're doing. And a lot of the times what you'll find is that when people start dieting down, they start at such a low number. Or what they'll do is another thing like, I just cut out carbs and I lost 6 pounds in the first week. Well, you lost a lot of water.
Yeah.
I bet you were pissing a lot, weren't you? Yeah, man, I'm losing all this weight. I sure am pissing a lot. So I think in there, educating people is very important as well to understand. But hey, man, for like something like every gram of like sugar your body stores, you're storing 3 grams of water, right? Stuff like that. Whatever the figure is. Sorry, it's been an off day for me, but I think a lot of that stuff, educating people, because once they feel more comfortable in it, once they understand why they're doing it, again, a lot of the times what you'll find is once you start educating more, all of a sudden, miraculously, the same program sometimes starts working again. Mm-hmm. And that's when you go, there was something you weren't doing because you didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal. Mm-hmm. But yeah, some people do get stuck. And I think that, like you said, social media and how everybody's a coach now, look, some bodies are just shaped that way. Like I'll have veins in my delts, and I'll still have love handles. My body just carries the fat there. It's not. I know how to eat. I can get down under 2,000 calories a day and be doing all the cardio and all the lifting and all those things. And guess what? I still have love handles, man. It's just genetics.
It's just where it sits. Yeah. You'd have to have somebody go in and suck it out.
I mean, hey, in those situations, I would say that's probably a great, get down to the weight that you like and be like, dude, these love handles, and go get you one of those procedures done if it's something that you want to do. And because, a lot of the times I have to get so lean that I don't feel great. I'm weak. I don't sleep well for me to even get the love handles down. So it's just at this point, I'm just like, hey, check me out. I like to eat,
This is them.
You were one of the people. You were one of the reasons I was telling you about it. Remember a couple years ago, I was like, man, these love handles, I hate these love handles. And you were like, hey, have you ever just stopped to think maybe they're just there and there's not much you can do about it? And it's just genetics. And I was like, I don't want to talk to you anymore, Jim. Leave me alone. I don't want to talk to you anymore. You leave me alone. You're supposed to be feeding into my delusions.
Well, I think that speaking of it is a delusion. It is also a thing that's propagated by social media that like anybody, if they work hard enough, can reach, an ideal physique as defined by people on social media, and it's not true. In the same way that you're not going to make someone an elite athlete if they don't have the genetics for it. You're not going to make somebody an intellectual if they don't have the genetics for it. You can make them more learned, but you can't make them an intellectual. You can get them into better shape, but you can't make them into Michelangelo's David. There's that's just truth. It's just truth. Just like and learning to live with that is something we don't teach or very well, and
that's what we face as fitness professionals, right? People come in and they have this level of expectation. Now we have to like re-educate them almost. Like, okay, so this is how real life really works. That's absolutely true. Is trying to fight expectations that people see online because they're like, well, I want to look like this person. And I know some people in the industry that are, far more. I'm nobody, I'm just some guy. But I know people that are extremely popular. Speak to them quite often. And I'll give you, for example, you see them release all these photos throughout the year and all these different, and they're all super lean. A lot of those photos that you see, those people will take multiple outfits to a shooting session, and they will shoot all those different outfits so that it looks like separate sessions, and they will sprinkle those throughout the year so that you think they have veins in their abs 24/7, when in actuality they're probably a similar body fat percentage to me for a lot of the year. And you'll see them. They're kind of easy to spot from, and if you look for it, a lot of their stories that they post and stuff like that, they're wearing like hoodies and t-shirts and stuff like that. But all their posts, a lot of them, they're in their underwear and they're flexing and they're doing all their stuff. A lot of the times there's different things like that the average person doesn't see. They diet down for a good 3-4 months or take a lot of drugs, whatever the case may be. And then they go, okay, I'm going to do one long big photo shoot or over the course of several days in a few different locations. And now you have, thousands of images that you can just sort of sprinkle on social media and so forth throughout the year. So that's another thing to try to explain to people. Like, hey, their December picture and their, July picture were taken in the same week.
On the same day, probably.
Yeah, it was probably the same day, probably the same photo shoot, yeah.
Something that's currently everywhere, and that is GLP-1 agonists. Have you worked with anybody who's...
I was waiting for you. Yes, I have. Yes, well, I have a few.
We can't not talk about it at this stage of the game, I think.
Okay, so I already know where this is going to go, Jim. I'm going to tell you right now. Here's my thoughts on it. I think case-by-case basis, I think they can be a wonderful thing. And we're seeing doctors that are saying, hey, man, I've seen incredible success stories. I'm not an expert in that, so I'm not a doctor. But I can only go off what I've observed. And I've worked with a handful of people, so not a lot. I've worked with a handful of people that are on them. One person I know they think, developed ERD, which is like erosive esophageal erosion or whatever. It's like a step above GERD where your esophagus starts to erode away.
Yeah,
or whatever it is, because it's I don't know if they had, I'm not sure, but if they had like untreated GERD or whatever the case may be, but that stuff, because obviously the GLP-1's, the whole goal, if I'm not mistaken, right, is to sort of slow down the digestive process, right? Yeah. So it holds the food in your stomach longer, holds the food in your intestines, all these different things. Well, the problem that you have there is if you're already susceptible to some of those things, stuff sitting in your stomach for a lot longer will cause the stomach acid to come up a lot longer. And every time I was talking to, and it was a guy, every time I was talking to the guy, I know several guys that have done it, but this one guy in particular, every time I would talk to him, every so often, every time he's and he just burnt. And I was like, dude, what? I was like, man, you need to get that checked out. He's like, oh yeah, man, they said it might be a side effect of the medication that I'm on, and blah 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 blah. And I said, I don't know, man, I may want to get that checked out. And sure enough, now he's off of it. So he's off of it now, but now at least for the next while, they have to keep scoping his throat every so often to make sure he doesn't end up with esophageal cancer. Yeah. As a result of it. But that's like that's the horror story for most people I've seen. They've had pretty good results in it. But I would like to have more of an opinion on it. I just don't, because I just don't have any my personal experiences is that, that one bad case. So I would say, hey, just like anything, there's a risk. Guys that want to run gear, having this conversation today, somebody was asking me about it. I'm like, look, dude, if you know the risks, that's up to you. It's a risk to reward ratio. Everything has a risk. So,
to me, a couple things. One, I think that it's getting prescribed without the amount of support, particularly around the nutritional part and the behavioral modification part, and just like counseling and stuff. Period. I have a family member who is quite overweight, who is recently on Ozempic and is losing weight, but like got no guidance at all. And like, I'm not qualified to say a hell of a lot, but I would say, look, get yourself a food scale. Make sure you're getting protein. Look at your get a tracking app and start filling that out every day, so you know
you don't even have to do it that long. Just long enough for you to start understanding what you're seeing.
Yeah, and
2-3 weeks.
Yeah, and then the other piece of that being that this at least one study that I've read seems to be showing that eventually having something like having a bariatric surgery, like a stomach sleeve or something like that, is about 5 times more durable in terms of weight loss than being on a GLP-1 agonist. So like it's a good spot to it's a good thing to start with, I think. But for some people,
the next logical step would be education on keeping it off.
Yeah.
That's almost like, it's almost like the guys, running gear, and then they stop taking. They're like, man, I lost all this blah, 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 blah. It's like, but you didn't really have a foundation to begin with,
Right. Yeah.
So you have to, but yeah, I can see that too, because a lot of those people, they, as soon as they get off the drug, they're right back to doing.
They're right back on it. Yeah. Or right back on the weight gain.
And the rebound effect is big. The rebound effect's big. My philosophy with my clients when we start talking about weight loss, and I've had a lot of people lose 100 plus pounds with me. My philosophy is, just like when you gain muscle, when you want to bulk up, a lot of people have a natural tendency to, as soon as they get to that whatever their weight mark is, they immediately start dieting down. Mm-hmm. And you need to stick there. You need to stay. Yeah. At least 3 months. I mean, I've heard people much smarter than me, retired IFBB pros and so forth, say that you really need to, if you're doing a serious bulk, you need to stick with it a little bit longer than that. But I say at least 3 months. You need to hold that weight. A lot of the same thing with weight loss. Once you get down to where you want to be, you need to now go into a maintenance mode. You need to hold that before you start launching in anything else, because that rebound effect is ugly sometimes.
Yeah, and I don't know if there is if there's really anything behind like the body finding a new equilibrium, or if how real set points are. Although everybody sort of does have spots where their body wants to weigh, and
I know that
and it's easy to stick in those places. Like I personally, like, my weight is very sticky. It's sticky down and up, and which it can be very frustrating on the downside.
Yeah. No.
And I'll get into a spot where I can eat, I won't say anything, but a more reasonable maintenance style diet and stay there for a long time without, years without like a big issue. And you get on the scale and it's like, well, I don't, like, I'm a pound or two ahead of what I was before or whatever. And so there has to be something to those sort of equilibrium points. But yeah, I think if you get down to what your goal weight is, you gotta stick there and not like have a months-long celebration over having reached a goal.
And having reasonable expectations as well. I tell my clients, once you get down to a certain weight, I'll go into maintenance. So when you go back into maintenance, a lot of times you're reintroducing more carbohydrates. You're reintroducing more stuff like that, especially. And so the body weight tends to fluff up a little bit, not because you've really gained weight, but you're just holding a little bit more, maybe water or whatever, the case may be there, because you've reintroduced some of those things. And so for them, I'll go for about a week or so and then see what their weight is. And then I'll say, okay, maintenance is within 5 pounds. So I usually do about 2.5 pounds up, 2.5 pounds down. And that's how we can kind of tell. Not a hard goal, like a hard that, because obviously, here's the thing, weight fluctuations, the more you weigh, the more weight fluctuations. You're up over 200 pounds. It might not be anything for you to weigh 210 one day and then the next day weigh 206.5 or something. Yeah. At the same time, because weight fluctuations, water weight and stuff like that's very real. Drinking alcohol, all these different things, different sorts of inflammation and things like that, and causing your body to hold on to all those things. It's the weight fluctuation gets greater as your body weight increases. So, but for me, it's just as a general rule, I try to stick within that 5 pounds. But like I said, when you're on these different medications, the doctor goes, "Okay, here, eat healthier." Yeah. I can tell you exactly. I can tell you right now, I know quite a few doctors, and aside from the basic understanding that a lot of people have, the honest ones will tell you, "Hey, man, I'm not a nutrition expert. That's why I refer out to dietitians and all those different things."
Let me ask you this question: do you have opinions on, experience with a favorite or whatever food tracking app?
I used to really enjoy giving, but before I felt comfortable working with people's macros and stuff, I used to recommend Lane's app. What is it? It starts with a C. Carbon Diet Coach. I used to recommend that one because it was a diet coach, and it was, I mean, for what it was pretty good. The only issue that I saw again was, unless you were consistently pretty much eating the same food, the water weight fluctuation could throw off sort of the algorithm, right? So even if I'm only eating X amount of calories, but depending upon what I'm eating, if I'm having more salt or whatever, you know what I mean, and I have those fluctuations, it would throw it off a little bit, but maybe for what it was great. Now I usually recommend, and no, I don't get paid for it anyway. There's no affiliation here, but the Stupid Simple Macro.
Oh,
I think that's what it is. I think that's the one that I use. I can pull it up right now. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Stupid Simple Macro Tracker, and it's actually gotten a lot better.
I don't know that one at all.
It's like $30 a year or something.
That's cheap.
I can't remember.
Yeah, Macro Factor is like $80 a year.
Yeah, this one is
Fitness Pal is like 65, 70.
Yeah, this one is. I'll go into my subscriptions real quick. It is stupid simple macro tracker. Yeah, $30 a year, $29.99.
So go on.
Oh, I was just gonna say I like that one because it's once you get used to it and the adjustments and everything, it's there. And the cool thing I like about it, it has a quick macro button. So like, it has a barcode scanner, but let's say, oh man, I forgot to plug that in. You can just Google what the nutrition was on what you ate. Like if you ate a protein bar or whatever. Okay, 4.5 fat, 17 carbs, 20 grams of protein. And you can go in there and just go 4.5, 17, 20, and it'll calculate. It'll throw that into your log. So you don't have to
nice.
type out what it is or search for it. You can just plug the macros in and instead of having to worry about all that stuff.
My biggest gripe about all of them is size and composition of databases. Like things you
gotta fact
scan
check it.
or if you put things in, you're basically just searching for something that you ate. Like they all seem to push toward prepackaged foods.
Because it's the easiest thing to track because most people aren't, like we talked about earlier, most people aren't weighing their food.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's, and it's also, here's a further problem that we have. How do you do it? Do you do do you weigh your meat before or after you cook it? Because technically most of those are before cooking. But let's say you get 80-20. How much fat's getting cooked out of that? You know what I mean? Are you really getting all that fat? So how do you figure that out? Now there are other databases like I think the USDA has some or something like that where there's different, like you can actually look at what the cooked portion is, but like at the end of the day, you know, there's always going to be a little bit of difference.
If you put in essentially like charbroiled chicken breast, 9 times out of 10 you're going to get Trader Joe's. And the sodium for that is going to be considerably higher than if you cooked it yourself at home.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why
so
yep.
The nutrient profile is not the same.
No.
It's just not. And then I don't know. MyFitnessPal is I think is somewhat garbage now in terms of because you're locked into particular measurement values that are in there. Like, so
doesn't it do where it like calculates how much calories you burned or something, then it tries to make up the difference or some sort of thing like that?
All of them will do that, and you usually have to pay to shut that off.
Yeah, that's just
which is
like defeats the purpose. To me, it defeats the purpose. It's like, why are you telling me to eat more? No, I need to eat. I'm trying to eat this much. It's not. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. So.
And then if you with FitnessPal, if you decide, okay, today I'm going to go lower calorie today. I'm going to go lower than my goal by a good amount. Then it tells you you're not eating enough, and then it just won't even it doesn't want to record your log because you under 8 or whatever. And it's like, well, maybe I'm doing that on purpose. Maybe I'm looking at a whole week and not a day.
So that's why I like the MyFitness, this macro tracker thing. Yeah. It has an option for like rollover calories. If I'm not mistaken, I haven't used it in a while. Let me double check. But I think you can bank some calories. So for example, a good thing would be this weekend is going to be, it's got a little bank on it, and it's got a little piggy bank, and it shows me I got 1,400 calories because some days I'm just not as hungry and I don't eat all the calories because right now I'm on 2,400. I'm trying to lose a little bit. So, but the cool thing is for stuff like that, like a lot of my clients would be like, hey, I have one of my clients. He's an Italian guy. And so he's recently moved back home to Italy. And so, of course, all this family and all the food and everything. So a lot of the times his strategy will be, and it's a good strategy, I'm really going to lock it in and rein it in during the week because I know Saturday we're going to have this big dinner. You know what I mean? So you kind of are reallocating that. You know what I mean? Yeah. You're kind of balancing. It's almost like you're balancing the books, right? You're balancing it.
Right.
And so for a lot of people, they like to drink on the weekends and they like to have those empty calories. Okay, if your calories are 2,500, maybe you end up doing, during the week you do 2,300. So by the time you get to the end of the week, you got like an extra little 1,000 plus calories where you can play with having some drinks. But some of those apps, like you say, it's like they shame you into, it's like, hey, you didn't eat enough or you ate too much. And it's like, dude, come on.
Yeah. I don't understand that at all.
Yeah, but I know Carbon, you can adjust the days, or at least you could. I haven't used Carbon in a while, but you could adjust the days of the week where you wanted your calories. So you could be like, okay, these days are lower, these days are higher. But on this one that I use, the reason I like it is because it doesn't matter. Each day is independent. You can worry about the banked calories, but I try to tell my people, treat every day as its own day and just try to stay within those confines.
And don't let the app add the exercise calories back into your calorie allotment for the day.
This one doesn't do it, I don't think.
That just really blows my mind.
Yeah, it's like, hey, I'm trying to lose weight and you're telling me to eat more. Get the fuck out of here.
Well,
sorry, I'm over here cursing.
That's fine. We curse on this show. Let's just tie it off here, and we'll just hold out the thought that you'll be back at some point. And we'll cover something else. If people want to get a hold of you, or if you want people to get a hold of you, how would that happen?
The okayestcoaching.com. Yes, the okayestcoaching.com. Okayest.
I've always loved that.
The Okayest Coach on Instagram. And those are two best, because if my website has a reach out to me kind of thing. Just heads up, my website's a bit silly because obviously by my name I try not to take life so seriously, so I try to have fun with it. But those are the two best ways to get me.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for being on with me today. For those of you who are asking the question, where's Mike? And the question is, I don't always know where Mike is these days. The next several months, Mike is working with a client and traveling with a client, and he'll be around when he's around, and when he's not, I'll be talking to folks I want to talk to. That's the bottom line. Interesting stuff, things I'm interested in that I'm going to pursue over this time, and it'll be worth it. Trust me, it'll be worth it. I've been doing this a long time. It's not like I have no sense of content anymore. I am at the Jim McDonald on all the social media. This show is 50% facts, or percent is a word, and 50 is just numbers. 50% facts. This is Spreaker Prime Podcast in association with iHeartMedia on the Obscure Celebrity Network. And if you're in Sacramento sometime, drop into 3rd Street Barbell downtown. And we'll talk to you next time.